Thanks for coming, everyone. Can you hear me? Is this on?
What?
Is that? Yeah. So I, along with having done some writing and opinion journalism, the past couple of years, I've been running a small group in Washington, D.C. called the Emergency Committee for Israel, which some of you might have seen or heard of. It's not a Jewish community operation, it's a political operation, and so the remarks that I'll make are more, I guess, political, not partisan, but just observations on the political nature of the battles over Israel and Zionism. And my view, there's sort of a conundrum in my view, which is that, we Jews and we in the pro-Israel world have some of the best debaters of any people in the world. We have, Bret Stephens of the Wall Street Journal and Charles Krauthammer and Alan Dershowitz, and we have all these guys who are brilliant. And yet we seem to always lose these battles. And we seem to be losing the battle. We certainly are losing the battle of opinion over Israel in the world. And so why would people who have such masterful debaters have this problem? And I think it's because the Jews we're basically operating from a bad playbook. And the bad playbook is that Jews like to play defense. We like to engage in criticism and engage with criticism and try to discuss it and debate it and figure out why people are saying the things they're saying about Israel or about Zionism. And this is something that's kind of unique to Jews that can be really wonderful and nice in a lot of ways. But in this political context, it ends up being a big problem. Because what's really gone on, especially in the past, in the Western world, in the post-1967 era, is there's been what is in effect, in political terms, a negative campaign against Israel. And negative campaigns, like we're seeing right now in the presidential election that's getting underway and in any political contest, in a negative campaign, you throw a bunch of allegations at your enemy and you try to make the debate about your enemy and about their alleged sins. Because in politics, as the old saying goes, what you're talking about is more important than how you talk about it. What you want to do in politics is basically control what's up for discussion, control the subject matter. And so any semi-competent political strategist or campaign advisor will tell you that when you're on the receiving end of a negative campaign, you don't dwell on the accusations, you don't entertain them, you counterattack. You go on the offense, and you try to turn it into an issue about your opponent. Jews don't do this. Jews seem to be more than happy to sit around and discuss whether Israel is an apartheid state, whether Israel is a war criminal, whether Israel is, a racist entity, whether Zionism is racism. And this has been going on for a very long time now, and it shouldn't be that much of a surprise that in a lot of respects we're losing the battle for opinion. The better way to handle a negative campaign is to reject the accusations and focus your energy on the people who are making these accusations. And I'm not talking, by the way, about people who say, the debate about, settlements or something like that. I'm talking about the sort of the harder edge, the more the Goldstone report kind of rhetoric about Israel, the stuff that's so common today in the British media, at the UN, in the NGO world, on the pages of Haaretz, on the pages of the New York Times, unfortunately. But what you're supposed to do in this type of situation is attack the people who are attacking you. Question their motives. Question why they hold such dishonest and unfair opinions about you. Question why they are so obsessed with every little twist and turn of what Jews are up to and not what Iranians are up to or Syrians are up to or the Chinese are up to or the Russians are up to. And this is something that Jews we have a very hard time doing this. And there's, of course, great historic reasons for this, which is that we come out of a culture that for 2,000 years did not have a sovereign political element to it. It was a culture that had to adapt itself to minority status and into political weakness, and one of the ways the Jews have always dealt with political weakness has been by trying to be as inoffensive as possible. And so this is a strategy that very much, I think, derives from that. And so the Jewish community has not learned, in some ways, the kind of hard political lessons that most other communities, people seem to understand. And I think there's, in terms of the American Jewish scene, there's another aspect of this, which is that the Jewish community in America tries to help Israel, for the most part. And I think that one of the, and this is a sort of a mild criticism, the incentives for the organized Jewish community are incentives toward reducing conflict. They're incentives of consensus. They're incentives of smoothing over differences, of lowering the tone and things like that. When in political warfare, the incentives are actually the exact opposite. They're of heightening contrast. They're of defeating your opponents. They're of being very aggressive with people and saying mean things about them and doing mean things to them. And it's very, one of the dynamics that in my sort of several years of being involved in this that I keep running up against is, the Israelis come to America and they hold conferences and they invite people to come and talk to them. And they bring Jewish community people in. And inevitably the advice from the Jewish community is, we should really, let's have panel discussions about, whether Israel's an apartheid state. Let's freak out about BDS rather than just, attack and make fun of the BDS people, which if you've ever met BDS activists, you realize we don't have that much to fear from these people because they're very silly people. And so, the Jewish community incentive is to make nice, and it's a failure to recognize that the people who are attacking Israel have no interest in making nice. This is a classic political attack whose goal is to weaken your opponent and make it acceptable in world opinion for Israel to end. And I think that, frankly, the Jewish community should be less involved in defending Israel. Let the political people do it because it's a political fight. And so those are my thoughts as a political person.